refill it? There's been incredible things that have happened this year. There've been wild and wonderful things that have happened this year. There's been some strange things that have happened this year. And you know what? The question is, what have we learned from all of it? Because I'm a big believer of whether we get hit in the face with the good stuff or the bad stuff, there's always something to learn. There is always something that we can learn. And the trick is to sit there and say, all right, instead of thinking that that glass is half empty or that glass has got a hole in it and somebody else has put a crack in it, we need to sit there and say, how do we refill it? How do we sit there and say, what have I learned? What experiences have I, what's new in my life? And where do we go from here? So my question is, Sia, what have we learned this year? Let's gnaw on this.
Oh boy, this is what. Can we do simpler topics if we're gonna gnaw on things I kind of enjoy my vacuous shallow life. This is a deep one. Um, Let me just go flat out and say it. This year has the beginning was great, the middle is great, towards the end, like literally, I am still recovering from this stupid cough. Okay, and for me, if I'm not
Get
feeling
a
100%,
shot.
I know. Don't get me started. So to if I'm not performing at 100%, I get frustrated with myself. I get angry with myself
Mhm.
and I get very demotivated and it's just not healthy, you know? And so what I learned about myself, and it's very topical, is I have to relook at 2026 for me internally as giving yourself grace, giving yourself patience with others, patience with yourself, because frustration has been, I think, a big theme for the last half of the year for me.
Mhm.
And it's very sobering to know that though your head consciously says one thing, your actions speak louder than words, right? And so that's one thing I've learned, at least for me, is it's so easy when things are going well and going right. Wow, everything just works. Everything just flows. Is it because you gloss over the crappy part because you're on a high or you're pushing it off to the side? Or is it because your mindset's so positive that even the crappy parts you're making do and making it happen? And so therefore the experience is broader, better. So very reflective question for you to ask of me because right now I'm absolutely in the recognizing I put myself in a crappy space because I chose to put myself in a crappy space and it's not fair to others. And I realized that the bad habits I got away from when I was in my corporate life creeped its way back into the Syya entrepreneur creator life. So, yeah, work in progress. Life is always going to be a work in progress. And damn it, that's exciting and frustrating at the same time, right? It's like I'm 50 freaking 1 years old and I'm still trying to figure out life, right? That is fun and not so fun at the same time. So, I mean, gosh, Ben, what about you?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think we are constantly learning. From the day we're born to the day we die, we're constantly learning, whether we're paying attention, whether we are, bringing it all in, whether we're internalizing it, whether we're mulling it over, whether we're gnawing on it or not, is a different story altogether. But I'm a big believer that life, people, experiences are always teaching us something. It may not be what we want to learn, but it's probably what we need to learn. And we need to do this. I mean, this has been a year of transition for me. I mean, anybody who knows me knows this has been a year of transition. December 2024, at the end of December, I shut down your brand marketing after 17 years.
Hmm.
I decided, you know what? Now is the time I want to create impact within an organization. I want to drive change. I want to coach, mentor, and lead the next generation, help create alignment, etc. It's 12 months later. I still haven't found the right opportunity. I've come close a few times. A few times I've run away.
Hmm.
I've found out a lot about myself about the jobs that I turned down. And I turned them down for very specific reasons. One uh, client told me that they wanted me, they really wanted me, they absolutely needed me. We'd figure something out. And then at the very end, they said, you know what, we need you to move here.
Oh,
And I sat there and went, no, because I knew that was a divorce waiting to happen. There's no way in God's green earth, Heather was not going to move. And I would never ask her to move. And because of that, I would be living in a different city 5 days a week and coming home every weekend. And that's not conducive. It's not conducive. It doesn't make sense. And you're sitting there traveling at the very worst time because you're traveling when everybody else is. So that didn't make a lot of sense. And the other one was they just had a dysfunctional internal culture.
mm,
And I realized this before I walked in the door. And what I realized is we need to ask better questions up front. We as
yes.
human beings need to not be afraid to upset the apple cart, and we need to ask better questions up front,
Mm,
because better to not get a position, better to be not shortlisted for a position than to be shortlisted for a position that is going to enable you to fail in 6 to 9 months. And I'm looking at a situation right now where I'm sitting there going, I know enough about this organization to know maybe this isn't the right place for me, and I'm comfortable with that. And if it means that another month or another 2 months that I'm out there looking, so be it. But I also know that sooner or later, I'm lucky enough. I've been doing consulting work in the meantime, so I've got some short-term consulting jobs that are keeping me alive and keeping me afloat. But I can't do this forever. And so you need to sit there and say eventually, okay, what's next? If this doesn't work, if where do we pivot to next? And we constantly have to be looking at our life and saying, all right, I've given this 110%. I've put all the effort in. I've done all this. For some reason or other, this is not working. Why isn't it working? Is it me? Is it the economy? Is it somebody else? Is it the way I'm presenting myself? Who knows? But it's being willing to evaluate this and being willing to pivot and change and adapt and be creative. And I think that those are the things I've learned about myself, and the things I've learned about others is a lot of times it's not about me. Most times it's not about me. A lot of times it's the fact that either a better candidate walked in the door, or I just don't have a certain skill set, or there's something that they want that I just don't have. And I can't be everything to everybody. And in order for me to be successful, I need to realize that I'm going to hear no a lot more times than I'm going to hear yes. And I need to be okay with that.
that's a critical part and be okay with that, right?
Hmm.
I think there's something about, again, going back to wisdom, experience, and being realistic and pragmatic about things. I think when we're early on in our careers, there is an illusion, right, of what we expect a opportunity to be and how it's going to look. And everyone wants to work together, don't we? You know what I mean? And so I'm wondering, because we are older, we have the luxury of choice to know what's good and what's not good for us. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but I ain't no multimillionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then at some point,
As I tell people, there's nothing winning the lottery wouldn't solve.
yes. But I also would say I think it's sometimes too on the flip side, and I'm not saying you per se, but there are other individuals where it's like, I don't think you're in a position of strength to keep poo-pooing opportunities.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's, again, going back to this year and thinking about some opportunities that have come and gone, projects that have come and gone, projects that, why didn't it continue? Those like self-analysis of actually it ran its course, or
Hmm.
perhaps the, maybe the working relationship is not what you wanted it to be, whatever it is. It's really fascinating. I think 2025 for me was definitely a growing up year. I would probably summarize it as mature as I am. I
Hey,
definitely
you're
feel
only
like,
halfway through your life. You're not even at middle age yet. Give me a break.
yeah. Um, I think I do think in the grand scheme of life, if I were to look back, I would say this year is definitely a growing up year. Like
Yes,
I could see that
absolutely.
notch go chick. You know what I mean? I feel it
Yeah.
and I see it. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said I thought this year was easy. I don't think this year was easy.
I don't think this has been an easy year at all. And to qualify it says, you know what, there is no perfect job, there is no perfect situation, there is no perfect, marriage or relationship or whatever. Every relationship, every work experience, everything is going to have challenges. And I think we need to be able to sit there and say, okay, things are not going to be perfect, but are they better? Are they better most days than not? And I think that if we are willing to look at our life and sit there and say, everything doesn't have to be bread and roses. We don't have to hit home runs every day, but is life better most days than not? And if life is better most days than not, we're doing pretty well. If we could sit there and say, you know what, yesterday was a bad day, but today was great. And I learned something and I was productive and I was able to do some stuff and life was good. And I think we need to have that more of an experience and sit there going and say, well, if it's not perfect, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
If it doesn't check every single box I have, then it's wrong. Nothing is going to check every single box. And I think that we need to look back at our lives and sit there and say, over the last week, over the last month, over the last year, did we have more hits than we had whiffs at the bat? And I think most of us do. I think most of us don't appreciate the fact how often we actually do hit the ball and how often we do get on base and how often, even if it's a walk is still gets you on base.
At bats are at bats. I think that's
At
a
bats
big
or at
part. Get an
bats.
at bat, everyone. Just get an at bat. That's the
True.
critical part. And it's up to you if you choose to take the swing or not.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just again going back to, what I learned for 2025 is you have to put yourself up and out there. You have to at bat
Hmm.
it. And also there are times when getting to the bat and choosing, you know what? I don't always got to go for a grand slam.
Hmm.
Maybe take on that small project, you know, and just get a bunt, right?
But bunt
If
advances the runner. It's and
and
that
sometimes
some
it's to help the other. It's helped to advance. So maybe you take the bunt so you don't succeed, but your person going second or third base succeeds, right? Like,
exactly.
and the fact that we're even talking about a baseball analogy, Chris Malazewski's going to laugh his you know what off because I am not of this genre. So anyway, that's as far as my analogy goes, kids. We're done.
Hey, listen, you know what? I am impressed you went that far.
All right.
I've this. I am I am a ninth inning baseball watcher. I like the eighth and ninth innings. But you know what? It's still exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I think, and we land this plane pretty quick, and it's the end of the year, and everybody wants to get into this celebration mode because heck, it is the last day of the year. We need to sit there and look at life and sit there and say, okay, what happened? What could have been better? What could have been worse? What did we learn from it? And I think that if we all sit there and say, you know what, for the most part, things were pretty darn good. And I learned this, and this. If you learn two or three really interesting things about yourself this year, that's a great thing.
I think it's a huge win.
Absolutely. So let's leave it there. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Ben.
I'm Sia.
We'll see you soon. And guess what? Everybody like, subscribe, do whatever, click the buttons, because you know what? We appreciate you and we want to make sure we see you every single week.
Hey, hey, hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not On This Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. If you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at IamBenBaker.com or me at BrilliantBeeMedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. See you next week for another episode of Nom This Business Bites.